Juliet Okan, sitting here to my left, is the head of business development for ProTilly and a major contributor to the organization. Juliet accompanied me on a 1-month excursion to Bali. We had an amazing experience, an incredibly enriching opportunity for us, deeply, personally, professionally, and on many levels. And we had several lessons that were so embedded in us when we arrived home that shifted the way we kind of look at our world today. So I wanted to spend a few minutes and talk to Juliet about how she felt the experience went and how I felt it went and some of the lessons that we've learned. So hello.
Hello.
Tell me a little bit about what was one of your key takeaways from the experience in Bali.
So what a month, huh? What an incredible experience. Getting out of your element and being put into a controlled environment where everything's pretty much set up for you. You just have to go and learn. It was really different from everyday life.
Sure. And it sounds like it would have been a dream because everything is taken care of.
Right, yeah.
But you're also living on a regimen that you didn't set.
Right.
So you had to kind of release some of the control and just accept what was there. So that you could basically get the most out of the experience.
Right. And then even to that point, exactly that. Most people would hear that everything was already scheduled for you. Oh, I don't have to worry about a thing. How great is that, right? But then you realize how little you worry about yourself on an everyday basis. So then when you're only left with having to worry about yourself, you're kind of taken back a little bit and you're not really sure. Well, speaking from my experience, right, talking about coming from I rather than speaking for other people, I care so much about everybody else in my life, and I'm always worried about friends and family and what they're doing with their jobs or in their relationships. So when all that is taken away from you and you're only left with worrying about those things of yourself, you awaken, your eyes open to the areas that you've neglected and the judgments or bad habits and things of the like, how strong you've let those things grow and they take over. So I think my biggest takeaway from the past month was to take responsibility for yourself and to own your life, own your stuff, not worrying about other people. Because even if you have great advice, that's how I've always felt. I always felt I had such great advice that I wanted to share it with people. Then I realized that I was just sharing and I wasn't executing on any of it.
Executing on your own life.
Right. Executing the advice I had for other people, but doing it in my life. So the biggest takeaway for me was to almost lead by example. And when I have the energy, it's okay to be compassionate. It's okay to worry about your friends and your family, but worry about yourself first.
That's a very important point. And through the coaching that I do with many clients, I find that's a very common problem and a common dilemma. Right? People are so concerned with living up to also the expectations of others or what other people think of them or the priorities that they think other people think are important. And they're also wanting to please, right? Pleasing people by giving them advice, giving them direction, giving them support, and they're not taking care of themselves.
Right. Which then goes into the second lesson that we learned, revolving around the roles that we play. We're so busy fitting into the role of mother or boss or employee, friend, partner,
wife, spouse.
Right, exactly. We're so preoccupied with what we should be in those roles that we forget to be us, right? So something that we spent a lot of time on in Indonesia was peeling back the layers and peeling back the roles that we play and getting down to the root of who we actually are. And it doesn't mean that you throw your responsibility as those roles out the window, but instead of trying to fit this mold of what you think that role should be, allowing yourself to accomplish those things that you have to do from a unique approach, an approach that's from you, an approach that's from your heart, an approach that's from the way that you want to show up, not the way that you think you need to show up.
Absolutely. And again, through experiences that I had helping people solve relationship problems, that's a very common problem. People start a relationship behaving in the way they think people expect of them, behaving in a way that is dictated by the stereotype of that role, and not allowing their uniqueness and their individuality to be shown.
Right.
And once the uniqueness and the individuality starts coming out, then we're like, who am I dealing with?
Right.
And it happens on both sides of the relationship.
Right. And it's interesting when you're trying to weave your way through the dynamics of an office or a career or a job, and you want to be the ideal person, or you worry about how can I set myself apart, right? That's a huge question. What's going to make you stand out from the rest of the resumes in that stack? And what's going to set you apart is being you and letting those natural things come out. And then all of a sudden, you're not just any other candidate. You are you. You are Marie. I am Juliet. And it's not only going to help you stand out, but I think it's very liberating, don't you, to be able to come from.
You can't sustain anything that's not natural for very long periods of time.
Right.
And that's why, sometimes I reveal that people don't think that they need a coach or they need help because they're afraid to show who they really are.
Right.
That they've lived up to something that they try to be in other people's eyes.
Right.
It's a common concept in the work world. It's the fraud principle. People think in their work world, that underneath of all of those masks that they wear, that truly are fraud, and that maybe they're not who other people think they are. It's because they've built all these layers. Right? But underneath of all those layers is a really important, competent, unique, and cherished person that should come out. And if you let that person come out earlier rather than later, you'll be doing yourself and the relationship a service.
Absolutely, absolutely. Being clear, being honest, being true to yourself. That's the way I want to show up every day.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And I myself learned almost the same things. Well, certainly the same things. And a few others as well. And some of those I'll share throughout, the next couple of months, and some of the webinars that we'll be doing in the blogs, and of course more times like this where we can sort of speak candidly about the moments that really resonated. Thank you, Juliet.
Thank you.